SA Crypto, South Africa's largest blockchain community and news outlet.
Paresh Daya, who doesn't need a huge introduction at all. The man's very well known on SA Crypto in South African blockchain circles. Newly appointed Chief Strategy Officer of Fraxeum. Welcome back to SA Crypto.
Thanks very much for having me, James.
So Paresh, we are in the beautiful suburb of Umhlanga, my hunting ground. And you're visiting from Joburg after Blockchain Africa last week. We thought, let's get you down on the beach for an interview.
Absolutely, James. And you can see I'm rocking my shades there.
It works.
In proper Durban attire.
It works. If I had my shades with me, I would be joining you. Paresh, let's talk about your current outlook on the economy before we get into what you're up to at Fraxium and what your thoughts are on the South African crypto economy. Just from your experience, I know that you obviously worked at Lehman Brothers before the big crash in 2008. You were in London, in their offices when it happened. Now we're currently in the midst of another huge financial crisis. What similarities are you seeing, and what do you anticipate from your experience over the next couple of months?
Yeah, look, James, as you mentioned, so I've been through it. I have the war scars to actually prove it. I was working for Lehman Brothers in London in 2008. I actually started Lehman Brothers in 2007, so a year before the crash.
Wow.
I did go through the crash. It was September 15, 2008, and that memory is etched in my head, like you cannot believe. I woke up on a Monday morning and I looked at my phone and I had a look, and we saw that Lehman Brothers filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and that literally caused one of the greatest financial collapses of our times that we've seen. However, the current collapse that we're seeing at the moment is due to unprecedented events. As we know, coronavirus has overtaken the world, and we've seen a mass exodus of investors into the traditional financial system. And this has really caused a massive downturn into the economy. So if we have a look at the differences, we see that in the Lehman Brothers time in 2008 was really caused by financial instruments and various different products that were being sold by tier one investment banks that were typically AAA graded investments but caused the collapse. So ideally I'm talking about mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed securities, and collateralized debt obligations. The collapse that we're seeing right now is due to the virus, and I think it's literally just a negative sentiment that everyone has around the impact that the virus is currently having to society at this point in time.
How long do you foresee it going on for? I mean, 2008 in Western Europe and in the States, it seemed to take about 8 months to a year to fully get back into a bull market again. Do you foresee the same length of time, or would it be longer?
Yeah, look, I think that media has overhyped the coronavirus, and hence we've seen panic buying in supermarkets, which is causing a kind of negative effect on supply chain management in any case, in terms of retail sales. I don't foresee taking longer than 18 months to get back into a bull market. What I foresee is we need to get through the virus itself. We need to restrict the actual contagion of the virus. Once we start doing that, we'll automatically start seeing an increase in the stock market, and we'll start seeing more investors' monies into the traditional financial system. So my prediction is probably looking at around 12 to 14 months.
Now, a lot of crypto enthusiasts, especially Bitcoin enthusiasts, are very bullish on the fact that Bitcoin is hard money, and some of these more traditional financial markets are stimulated by quantitative easing and in essence inflationary economic policies which devalue the economies. Would you agree with that sentiment, or is that more of an overhyped narrative that the sort of Bitcoin and gold bugs have played to in recent years?
Look, I think, James, what these market crashes actually show us is cracks within the current financial system, right? And whether these market crashes are caused by the financial system itself or not, as we're seeing currently right now, it still showcases to us how fragile the current traditional financial system actually is, right? Now, if we have a look at what the Fed is actually doing, the Fed only has a couple of tricks up its sleeves. What we're seeing right now is interest rates have gone down to zero, and quantitative easing pumping and printing money into the economy. These are the only 2 or 3 levers that a Federal Reserve or a central bank or sovereign country would actually have in their back pocket in order to start stimulating an economy. Where the Bitcoin maximalists actually come in is the notion that Bitcoin is at some point in time a deflationary currency, and the monetary policy is actually baked into the network itself. I completely agree with that, and this is why we're trying to build a new financial system built on cryptocurrencies and digital assets itself.
Paresh, how did you move from traditional banking and then into the blockchain industry? You did a lot of development in FinTech and a lot of work in the DLT space. How did you come across the industry, and what got you into specific roles that focused a lot on the technology?
Interesting story there, James. So I spent pretty much most of my career living and working in London, so pretty much the better part of 10 years. And initially, as we spoke about, I started my initial career in London at Lehman Brothers, and then we filed for bankruptcy. But then I moved over to a few other tier 1 investment banks such as Nomura, and also spent quite a bit of time working for JP Morgan. So for example, at JP Morgan, I was primarily based within foreign exchange trading on the sell side, building out financial technology solutions for high frequency trading, low latency solutions, and then also spending a little bit of time, a short stint on the buy side within portfolio management. So I've been exposed to tier 1 investment banking at quite a large scale. As you know, a lot of the foreign exchange trades actually flow through London, and as such I gained a lot of experience, a lot of skills within financial technology and within investment banking, or corporate investment banking as they would call it. When I was living in London, funnily enough, I was actually looking to buy a VPN service to actually protect myself and to actually protect my privacy. And when I had a look at my VPN provider and the various different payment mechanisms that were accepted, it was your usual. It was your Visa, it was your MasterCard, it was an EFT. But then I saw a little sign saying Bitcoin down at the bottom. I said, I thought to myself, what exactly is this? And that was the start of my rabbit hole journey, going down into the crypto and the blockchain space. So I purchased my first Bitcoin to actually buy the VPN service. And from that day forward, I was hooked and I was sold. When I was living in London, I started getting involved in the Bitcoin and the Ethereum Classic meetups, and started mingling and networking with a lot of people within this particular space. I started getting myself involved within blockchain and started understanding what blockchain actually is as the underlying technology that actually fuels all of these cryptocurrencies, and started understanding the various different fundamentals of how networks, ecosystems and platforms are actually built, and how we can actually utilize these technologies for various different other use cases and value propositions to fuel and build a new financial system. When my wife and I moved back to South Africa, I joined a large banking institution here in South Africa, and I was based as an enterprise architect with sole focus on digital technologies such as blockchain itself. In addition to that, we also started building blockchain ecosystems as part of my Blink and Bexa initiatives, and that's really how we started to see and view blockchain technology as having a direct impact of what the financial system is going to look like for the next 10, 15, 20 years down the line.
And in recent times, quite big news, of course, is that you are the newly appointed Chief Strategy Officer of a very exciting FinTech platform based in South Africa, but a global platform called Fraxeum. That's quite a big move. It's exciting for a lot of people, but I'd imagine it's new ground for you to be fully focused on a startup of this nature. Tell us about this appointment, how you came into getting involved with Fraxium, and what your vision is.
Sure. So I've always had entrepreneurial flair in any case. I think that building ecosystems with the Blockchain Entrepreneurs Club of South Africa has really showcased what impact entrepreneurs and SMEs can have to an economy, and especially when we're talking about Horizon 2, Horizon 3 style thinking of how do we build future economies, how do we build future platforms that have a very high inclusivity effect for the world population. My move right now, as you mentioned, I've taken my entrepreneurial journey full time. That was purely to fuel my passion for entrepreneurship. I really wanted to make a massive impact using digital assets and blockchain, and as I mentioned before, to build a new financial system that a lot of smart people are currently working on. And for me, in order to do that, entrepreneurship route would be the best avenue to actually do so, in terms of the nimble speed and very quick, rapid kind of business building that we could execute using entrepreneurship and building and scaling businesses. That for me is really where my passion lies. So Fraxeum for me was an absolute no-brainer. The CEO of Fraxeum, as you know, is a gentleman called Llewellyn Morkel, who's a serial entrepreneur, a very, very good friend of mine, and I know him for the past couple of years, around 4 to 5 years. Llewellyn and I always had the common vision and the common goal of what we're trying to build and what we're trying to execute in the fintech environment. A lot of my passion, a lot of what I actually want to drive, as I mentioned, is inclusivity, and also around making massive socio-economic impact and also technological impact. What we feel, Lou and I feel, is that within the current traditional financial system, a lot of the population are either currently locked into a traditional financial system, or they're currently excluded altogether within financial systems. So the rise and the wave of the fourth industrial revolution with technologies like blockchain, digital assets, IoT, robotics, artificial intelligence, self-driving cars are really going to drive a new wave of fintech and offering a very consumer-focused products and value propositions. And that is really what I want to drive, what I really want to build, and help scale globally.
So Fraxeum is really early now. You guys have just launched. Congratulations, by the way, on
Thanks.
the launch. Tell me about the vision for Fraxeum. I mean, here you are, you've launched in quite frankly terrible market conditions. What do you anticipate for the next 6 months to a year? What's the first couple of steps for Fraxeum now that you've built the foundation?
Sure. So our mantra and our slogan at Fraxeum is 2 words: fueling fintech. Right? So essentially what Fraxeum actually does is we fuel fintech by actually building a global technology startup that actually introduces an innovative launchpad platform. That's really what we're looking at in a nutshell. So what we're currently seeing at the moment is innovators, be them SMEs, entrepreneurs, or even corporates themselves, are struggling to take fintech solutions into the market. So a lot of people have very good ideas around financial inclusion, be that borrowing, saving, credit, or anything based on digital assets. They're struggling to actually build and scale these businesses because of the complexities that they currently and the myriad of hurdles that they face while launching fintech businesses. So some of these problems that they're actually facing is lack of understanding of disruptive technologies, as I was alluding to before, shortage of skills within technology and understanding of these various skills, and a massive cost base in terms of research, development, and actually understanding how these platforms are actually going to be built. So as Fraxeum, as a platform itself, we completely eliminate all of these problems for our innovators and our clients that build on top of Fraxeum. So essentially Fraxeum is an innovative platform that has out-of-the-box modules for fintechs to actually tap into. So some of these modules are, for example, wallet-based mechanisms, fund management, KYC, taking care of legal jurisdictions and requirements for our various different fintechs. One of the key components for building a new financial system is what I alluded to before, is what we call digital assets. Right? Now, digital assets is quite an umbrella term, it's quite a loaded term, but ideally, under digital assets are subsets of assets. So, for example, we could lump in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the various different altcoins. We could have a look at security tokens, utility tokens, stable coins, and at some point in time, central bank digital currencies, which is a very hot topic right now, very controversial topic as well. But this is what we deem as digital assets, and this is going to form the foundation for fintech businesses and for the future financial system. So digital assets for us is baked into the heart of Fraxeum. So that completely abstracts the various different complexities of blockchain, digital assets, fintechs, wallets, legal requirements away from our end user clients, and we help them very quickly, very rapidly build a business and scale it into production.
Paresh, if someone's watching this or listening to this on the podcast, and for those of you listening on the podcast, we hope you enjoy the wonderful background lapping waves of Umhlanga, Durban, KZN. For those who are listening or watching, how can they get hold of you or Fraxeum if they say, hey, what you've just mentioned now is something that I actually want to experiment with, or we need that built. We're looking to build a a utility token, a tokenized share platform, we want to launch a security token. How do they get hold of you? What's the next step for them?
Absolutely. So anyone can get a hold of me on social media. LinkedIn, Twitter would be the best way. But if you can't grab a hold of me on that, my email address is paresh@fraxeum.com. Very simple, very easy to remember. Anybody can reach out to me and help build the new financial system.
Any final comments that you may want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, so I think that Fraxeum is a cutting edge technology startup that has been started here in South Africa. I think that we have tremendous talent here in South Africa and in Africa, and we need to fuel that. My opinion is that SMEs entrepreneurship is going to lead the wave of change and get us out of the current economic climate that we currently are in at this point in time. So definitely reach out to us, understand what we're actually trying to build. We have a fantastic vision and a strategy of where we're seeing Fraxeum actually go. We want to launch our testbed here in South Africa and then launch globally with our first target markets out in Africa. So please reach out and let me know if you have any questions and anything around Fraxeum.
Fantastic. Well, Paresh, thanks so much for joining us, coming down to Umhlanga for this interview. It's been great, and we wish Fraxeum all the best.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for having me, James.
SA Crypto, South Africa's largest blockchain community and news outlet.